You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. I am pleased to be joined for episode 80 today. Woo! Can you believe it, Kristina? Episode 80.
I can. It's been amazing to watch this unfold. It's such a beautiful project, and I just am loving being part of it. Thank you.
I will put the actual right graphic on the screen if people are watching here and not listening. So it's episode 80, Wednesday, March 2nd. I even have that little graphic.
Right.
Gotta fix that real quick. Gotta fix that. You know what?
Oh, wait, are you being a little perfectionistic?
I'm being a little perfectionistic. I'm joined today, Damon Frank, joined today by Kristina Dennis.
Good morning.
Recovery coach. How you doing?
I'm doing beautiful. I'm really, it's beautiful here in sunny Southern California, and just a good day to be in recovery.
It is. I'm on my second cup of coffee here.
Uh-oh. Watch out.
So I'm ready to go. You know, you are the non-caffeine person.
I am.
I am the triple grande plus mocha frappuccino extra caffeine dude.
Yes, you're the red eye, right? Like 50 of them.
Exactly. So something for everyone here on the Recovered Life Show. But I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. I can't believe it is March already. We're almost through the first quarter. Looking back on the Recovered Life Show, wow, 80 episodes. That's a lot. I mean,
it's amazing.
That's a lot of consistency.
Yes, you know? And I love your commitment and being part of this, where we're committed to bringing this kind of information to people and cultivating our community. And this episode is actually brought to you by Recovered Life contributors and people like you. So if you're watching us on YouTube and you want to support us, like, share, and follow, please. But you can also catch this if you go into your car on all of the major platforms for podcasting: Apple, Spotify, Google Play. So check us out at The Recovered Life. And make sure that you tell a friend. We are growing our community.
You know, I love that you said that in the car, because a lot of people now are going back to the office. I have a lot of friends now who are working out of their house, and that they're going on trips or whatever, and they want a little bit of recovery in their pocket.
Yes.
Or they want it in the car. You know, you can just get it. And what's great, you just could subscribe to the podcast and just get it. And it's your little commute. It's kind of like a little recovery check-in.
Yes.
3 days a week right before.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we're live every day now. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 a.m., guys. So just to let everybody know, we're making the commitment. We're up early. Kristina was up, getting ready. You know, my up is a little bit, shower, throwing on a
it's not exactly even.
No,
but remember, I woke up at 3:45 because my pet raccoon jumped on my roof and decided to give me a little wake-up call with the scratches. So I've been up for a long time.
I have a series of raccoons as well that come right by my window.
Yes.
In the summer. It's always fun. It's always good to get up early, because you get a perspective and appreciation for sleep, right?
Yes. And for me, I need at least an hour and a half to 2 hours before I can really enter into the world. I used to shortcut that, and I can always tell when I don't. Doesn't mean I don't sleep in. There are days I sleep in to 8, but it does mean that that I get to come and be rested and in my whole body and present. So I love getting up early.
Well, in a perfect world, I think that's what I would want to do too. I felt like a little bit too much of a slingshot lately, where I'm up, I'm dealing with crisis, right? Or whatever's going on in the day too early. But I'm with you, that little padding. We got to do a show on that whole padding in the morning. I think it's like, how you wake up people that have addiction issues, how you wake up alcoholics, and what happens the first couple of hours sometimes does dictate how the rest of the day is going to go. I definitely do that. Well, we've got a really great show for you today, guys. It's awesome. 2 segments. The first segment, Kristina, I wanted to kind of set this up because you found this. It was a great article, and it's how exercise can help you beat addiction. And I know a lot of people are big exercise junkies that are in recovery. So I want to talk about that. Where did you find this article?
It's in Very Well Mind. And they have an addiction section. And I love to check it out, because not only do they bring up very, very good topics that we can discuss, but they also bring up, from a medical standpoint, exactly what is the next treatment. And although exercise is not a singular treatment for addiction, they are now starting the studies that show, and I think a lot of us know that, right? We know that, but this is one more way to put this tool in your toolbox. Part of my morning wake up is a treadmill. But it was very interesting because they're seeing how it really helps from all addictions too, withdrawals. It helps with withdrawal symptoms, but mind you, if you are thinking about withdrawing from alcohol, you still want to make sure you get help. It's still one of the most dangerous withdrawals that are out there. But it also adds like that extra padding, because we were discussing about padding in your recovery program.
Yes.
And we've got all of the endorphins and everything that come with it, but just committing that to yourself. I mean, I would tell you this, there are some days where I happen to work out in my pajamas, right? Because I don't even want one extra step before I'm willing to get on the treadmill. I know, I look pretty silly. I'll have to post it. So it's pretty funny, usually black socks and PJs. But what that does is take all of the challenges out of it, because all I'm doing is putting on my tennis shoes. And I know from Atomic Habits, are you familiar with that book? Amazing
I'm not.
Oh, amazing book where he breaks down the science of habits. It's one of those tools. And so when you start exercising, the goal is to get through the first 2 minutes and have that become the habit, right? Getting up, putting on your tennis shoes. So even if I only have 10 minutes, I will get on that treadmill every day, because that is my key.
I will tell you, you're way more dedicated than I am. I have to say, but there is hope for me, because I noticed right under cannabis, in between cannabis withdrawal and heroin withdrawal, there's caffeine withdrawal.
You can do it.
There is hope for me. Now, here's the thing that I found that was interesting on this. This looks like it's actually medically reviewed.
Yes, it is.
By Rachel Goldman, PhD. And also it was written by Elizabeth Hartney. Yeah. And they do go into the whole medical thing of this. And I think it's, I think I wanted to break this up here because I want to ask you two things about this, because I have to tell you, I've been incorporating walking into my life, just leaving and walking.
Yes.
Right. A couple of times a day. And it has really helped my attitude.
So much.
It really has. Right. So, but it looks like the whole first part of this article is all about withdrawal, right? Withdrawal. So people in early recovery. And I know a lot of people in early recovery listen to us. And I think some of these things, when you're talking about cannabis, cocaine, and meth, especially, right?
You wouldn't think of it that way.
These are long-term withdrawals. Like, you can have months of withdrawing. So it's interesting, working this into a recovery, a recovery program, right?
Right. And they're starting to use it in rehab facilities and all kinds of things. Because first they talk about the fact that talk therapy, group therapy, peer-to-peer support is incredibly important, but it can be enhanced if you add an exercise regime. And it can not only help you with your withdrawals, it actually helps repair your neurology.
Yeah.
And it aids in moving that along. So it's another point in the favor of exercise. And I'll tell you, when I first withdrew, and I've withdrawn for several things: alcohol, nicotine, people, and even with people it works,
right?
And
even
caffeine.
With people it works. Okay.
Even with people it works, and caffeine.
Well, that's good to know.
And it's very difficult to think about that. Let's say you're in the throes of either physical withdrawals or emotional, turmoil, because you're making a huge change in your life, and you call somebody up and they say, go take a walk. But that literally, there's now medical proof, and there's going to be more since this has been medically reviewed, where they'll start actually adding this into a system. So I'm pretty sure, you tell me if you agree with this, Damon, I'm pretty sure that even if you aren't in early recovery, it's going to help no matter what. It's one of my tenets.
Yeah, I think in early recovery, I think it's really great. But what it says here about later on in the article, which I wanted to definitely discuss, was the exercise for relapse prevention.
Yes.
And
isn't that massive?
That I think is interesting. This, we know that there's a lot that's happening in the brain when we come to cravings, right? And I think they're just tapping on that now. It's interesting, 12-step is discussed, sugar and I don't really remember 12-step discussing exercise as much. I mean, go
No.
for a walk I never really heard that. It was always kind of sit in a chair, eat some cake.
Yes.
Right. Some stale birthday cake, and which,
The
hey,
cookies
that
and
works too,
caffeine.
right?
Cookies,
Like I've
caffeine,
done
and
that.
nicotine, right? Cookies, caffeine, and nicotine. That was
E-
what was
Exactly.
presented when I first got sober, and they used it as almost like a like eat a Twizzlers, before you pick up a cigarette.
And
Not helpful.
I know that I know definitely for sure that they've done a lot of research about sugar and about lifestyle and soda and all that other stuff when it comes to craving. That's more and more, I mean, it's pointing more and more to that's not a good idea, right? But something's
That's right.
happening chemically, and
Yes.
they kind of understand it a little bit, but this whole idea of this dopamine that you get from exercise
Hmm.
and this also rhythmic kind of, I want to say like meditation kind of thing, like a
Yes.
treadmill or something like
Hmm.
that. I do believe it's very helpful.
Well, so what happens is not even, endorphins, they get a lot of play, but there's something called the Bdnf network. It's your
Hmm.
default mode. And when you meditate or do something that's very good for you physically, it actually sets your body up to do a full repair. And they have done a lot of medical studies on that, why meditation is important, why exercise is important. So even if you are just starting out, look, we're not talking about, what is that thing called? The stuff where they throw tires over and everything. I can't think of it right now. They have these big, huge gyms,
Oh yeah,
hardcore.
yeah.
CrossFit.
CrossFit. Yeah,
See, I blocked it out of
yeah.
my head. I never want to look at that. And so even if we're not saying go out and do that, you don't have to bench press all kinds of things. It's about getting your body moving. And then that BDNF protein will be secreted
Hmm.
or something like that. I'm not a doctor, but I've read a lot about it. And with my son, exercise is a huge deal for
Yeah.
him. So not only does it help your nervous system, not only does it repair your neurological system, it actually teaches your body and gives you a bigger reserve. So take that, move your body,
Yeah.
move along.
Well, here's the only thing, and it has actually, are there, people are listening to this are saying, hey, are there negatives about working out and fitness and stuff like this? And if you go back, we've done several exercises, several episodes, sorry, about exercise and about,
Right.
about just physical health, eating, things like that, about how it really helps with recovery, with early
Absolutely.
recovery,
And the
and also
chemicals.
with, yeah, and the chemicals, and also with just addiction relapse prevention, right?
Right.
But it does say here in the article about limits of exercise as addiction treatment. And here is one thing that I found. Like I was thinking, is there a negative about this? But I have had this experience where I have either worked with people that are in early recovery or known people in my peer group
Mm-hmm.
that they'll trade one addiction for another addiction,
Yes.
right? So they were somebody who had a really unhealthy lifestyle. They get sober, they're sober for a month, and then they decide that they're replacing their whole life
Mm-hmm.
with protein shakes and working
And
out 24
yeah.
hours a day,
Exactly. And
right?
I'm glad you brought that up, because the one thing we want to make sure that's very clear is there is, exercise bulimia. There are
Yeah.
issues with the eating disorder, disordered eating, that need to be in check. That's why you always want to be within a group with a coach or a sponsor. If you're going the 12-step route, you want somebody to understand what your recovery program has included, because there are definitely times when I was, dancing with disordered eating and really,
Yeah.
really bad body dysmorphia, where it was actually hurting myself. So we're not saying that. I want to make sure that that's clear, because if, this is not permission to go and act out in your disordered eating. It is
Mm.
very, very carefully put that you have a plan that you've thought through that's at your fitness level. And I do believe it has to be in check. There has to be a balance. 4
Yeah,
hours
because
at
you
the
don't
gym.
want to
Oh,
train. You don't want to, just real quick, you don't want to trade one addiction for another addiction. And that,
no,
that has been some of the comments about 12-step groups too. Is like, oh, you're just now
of
being
course.
addicted to 12-step groups or whatever. And I get that. Like, I understand. But you know what? That's stopping you from the behavior so you can have long-term recovery. So if you have to go to 50 meetings a day, you have to go to 50 meetings a day, right? Now,
Right.
this is a little different because I know I didn't even know that this is a thing, but it is that people get addicted it's
Oh,
almost like an eating disorder. They get addicted to this pattern of working out.
well, and if it's preventing you from living your life, unless you're a athlete, a professional athlete, or in those areas, and believe me, they struggle with disordered eating as well. But unless you're doing that, and it really needs to be a portion of your day, not your
Yeah.
whole day.
Yeah.
And that's why I brought up the working out in my PJs, just so everybody was clear. I'm not showing up at a gym 7 days a week and doing that. I have a balanced program that works for me, and it is watched over by professionals, so they can tell me, yes, you're doing this well. I mean, we need everybody in early recovery and
Yes.
throughout your recovery to check in with a medical professional and see where you are physically before you start.
Yes. And I think, the thing is that one of the things is that sometimes people come in very beat up
Yes.
and in really bad, especially with other drugs like,
Mhm.
meth and all this. I've seen
Heroin.
people come in, heroin and stuff, and and even alcohol, because alcohol is so destructive to your heart and all this stuff, that they come in and they're really not in a place where they could do this. And they feel that they're going to do all or nothing. And this is the whole thing
Mhm.
about the whole all or nothing thing. And this is very black and white thinking. And this is the thing that gets people in trouble, I think.
It
But
does.
what I love about what you were talking about, how you just had you right from your PJs onto the treadmill or
Mhm.
whatever, is this buffer. I talk a lot about in recovery about your recovery being like a brake pad, and
Okay.
you don't want to be metal to metal,
No, you
right?
don't.
You need
Your
a
margins.
buffer. You need a
Yes.
buffer, because when something happens, you have to be able to have a buffer to be
Mhm.
able to learn how to react to it in a healthy way, right? Like,
Yep.
so somebody's going to challenge you, be mad at you. It's not going to work out at work, or something's going to happen in your personal life or whatever. And if you're metal to metal all the time, you're just, eventually you're going to crash the car, right? That's the way that I look at it.
Right. They're going to fail. And if you're also, I'm going to bring up even another part of,
Yeah.
if you're going through a very, emotional recovery, let's say you're working on grief,
Mhm.
you're doing inner child work, you really have to be talking with somebody to decide. We're talking about just moving your body, but perhaps it's actually punishing for you to
Yeah.
get on that treadmill and go, 6.0 for 45 minutes. That isn't fun either. I always tell my clients, and I borrowed this from Al-Anon, and I've said it here before, you have to infuse activities in your day that are for fun and for free. So if hitting a tennis ball back and forth with your friend is exercise and it's for just fun, then you get a double bonus. But
Absolutely.
yeah, but make sure that you're out there moving.
Absolutely. I think this is a really great episode, little segment here, because, so many people are put with, you got to start working out. You got to start doing this. You got to start doing this. And I
Yeah,
think
it goes in our
everything
mind.
in moderation, especially in early recovery, I think you
Yeah.
just don't want to turn into a exercise psycho.
No.
You know what I
And
mean? You've seen those people, right? You know what I mean? It's just like
absolutely.
they go from abusing alcohol and drugs to abusing the gym,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
And
Avoiding
everything
life.
is about avoiding life. You could avoid life with the
All kinds
gym
of
just as
things.
much.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
If you
But
have,
this is great. I mean, this is great. What's your big takeaway from this, though? Kristina, you're really good at wrapping things up into
I
a
think
bow. What's your big takeaway from this article? What did you learn?
that they weren't lying to me when they said you had to exercise, that it is so vital to somebody's recovery program, and it's like supersizing your recovery program. And so, outside of what we discussed about it being hurtful if you're in a certain position with your physicality or your emotional state, exercise is always going to be a good move, and you got to do it like you take your vitamins and drink your water.
Words to live by. Kristina Dennis. I'm going to do that. I'm going to actually start being more
Put down the
disciplined on my
coffee.
walks. I'm not a power lifter, but I am going to start doing the walks.
Yeah, and put down the
Great,
coffee.
great article. I'm so glad that you found that. Guys, we have got a really great segment coming up next. Hold tight. We're going to talk about, if you're stuck in an area of your recovery, what you
Yes.
can do about it,
Yes.
which is good. And this is going to be a really great segment. But before we do, a little word about a program that Kristina has called Can't Say No. It's a free 3-day challenge For those of you that are just tuning in to the Recovered Life show, you might not know this, but Kristina Dennis, my co-pilot here, is one of the top codependency recovery experts. And she put together on Recovered Life this 3-day challenge. And here's a great thing, guys. It's 100% for free.
Mm-hmm.
And, you guys might have identified that it's a struggle to say no. You just can't say no, right?
Right.
And you're frustrated that you're always, giving more than you're getting.
Yes.
So in this 3-day challenge, we're going to, you can explore how to handle requests, set better boundaries, communication techniques. It's all in there. And so every day you receive a really great video from Kristina detailing what activities that you need to practice within this day. So guys, if you're listening to this and you are overwhelmed, you're always over volunteering, you're always the go-to person, you're feeling trapped, you're always feeling behind, and you're worn out and anxious, I'd say take the Can't Say No challenge. Just go to recoveredlife.us/can't say no. That's recoveredlife.us/can't say no.
Absolutely. Give yourself that freedom.
It is. Give yourself that freedom, guys. Take that challenge now. It's 100% free. And you'll also be joined in the Recovered Life Network, where you can get access to people like Kristina, this show, a bunch of Recovered Life contributors, and peers just like you.
We have a lot of fun over there. We have a lot of fun over there.
We do.
And if you're needing support or you're just interested in things like what we share about on the show, it's a lot of people communicating, being supportive of each other, and it is in a purely recovered community. So it's worth it for you to do, especially right now.
So make sure to take that challenge, guys. You can go to recoveredlife.us/can't say no. And coming up after the break, we're going to talk, hold tight, guys.
Yes.
Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about how to get unstuck.
Yep.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. Thanks for everybody holding on to segment 2 here.
Yes, this is a good one.
March 2nd. I can't believe I got to go back that we're in March 2nd. Kind of tripped me out. It feels like we were just talking about,
like that.
Hey, let's go live 3 days a week. We were talking about that like in January.
Yes.
Is that possible?
It is possible. And, I feel like these last 2 months have definitely been a place where we need to connect more. There's still, and especially in this last week, we need to connect with each other and make sure that we're not doing our recovery on their own. And I love this topic. I love the room that you do, Damon, on Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific. It's in Clubhouse. So if you haven't joined Clubhouse, make sure you do and follow the Recovered Life, because we have 4 rooms that we do every week, Monday through Thursday. And I love what you put together, because it really helps to be able to talk about this stuff, and where you can go if you are stuck, because you and I both know that putting down the substance and changing these behaviors is hard, and it needs to be maintained and supplemented for your life. I've been around 25 years. I know you're a little bit older than me. Had to say it.
Little bit, just a little bit.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Throwing some punches back. And so it's really important to know that you still need the support.
Yes.
And we have really, really good subjects, but one of my
I would say,
favorites is
Kristina, one of the reasons why I did Unstuck, and it's on Clubhouse, 9 a.m. Pacific time on Thursdays. The reason I did Unstuck wasn't actually for the newcomers. A lot of newcomers come in, a lot of people in early recovery come in, but it was actually for people who had decades of sobriety.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And the reason why I did it is because, I think it's harder the longer that you are sober, in my opinion.
It is. There's a whole bunch of, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm interrupting.
No, I was going to say, because I think that people that have long-term recovery feel that, and let's just call long-term recovery, some people say it's 5 years, some people say it's 10 years, but I'm really talking like after 10, 20, 30 years, right? And these are some of the people that Kristina, you and I talk with on a daily basis, right?
Correct.
it's harder, I think, because they don't want to come out. You don't want to come out and say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling
Yes.
100% stuck in my job, in this relationship,
Right.
in this whatever. You
Right.
just don't, because one, you don't want to turn off newer people.
Exactly.
If you're working with newer people, you don't want to do that, right?
That's true.
And the thing is you're saying, man, I'm the only one that's feeling that maybe I need more than just this Thursday night meeting.
Yes. Very dangerous
Maybe
too.
I need to, hey, to be honest, hey, things aren't working. Like I've had people, we talk about this. I've got this group, Old School, shout out to everybody who's in Old School. And to get into Old School, you have to have 5 years, but really the average, I think it's 15 years
Wow.
is the average sobriety. So there's people with 30, there's people, I think we have one person that is like 5 years or something, two
Okay.
people.
Lucky
And
guy or
this
girl.
is what we talk about. It's all guys, it's all
Okay.
dudes, right? Stagnating. And this is what we talk about. We talk about areas in our recovery that we're stuck and how to get out of them. And there's a lot of freedom there when you start talking about strategies about how to get unstuck.
There is, and I totally agree with you. After you've been around a little while, you do feel the pressure of always, having a storyline that talks about sobriety as being a good thing. And sobriety is always a good thing. I don't want to be misconstrued or sound confused, but yes, things show up in our lives. 5 years ago, I had a big level of awakening, and there was a lot of grief. And because I was in my home group, which I've been attending 23 years, I knew I could say it, but I sometimes wouldn't want to say it if there was a brand new person, because I don't want them to think, well, why the heck would I keep coming to this group if, she's been here the longest and she's miserable. So I'm very lucky. I have 2 to 3 people, and now your Thursday room to talk about these kinds of things. There's no shame in having struggles. In fact, I got sober at 27. Of course, there have been huge life changes since then. Divorce, a high support needs child. I've had to be able to talk about things. And with Recovered Life, we now have a whole new platform. And specifically in your Thursday room, I love the topics that you pick.
Well, it's interesting being part of a big, and I know I'm going to get comments here in the, I'm going to get some comments in the
Please.
thing, but being part of a big 12-step group in the Valley here in Southern California. And, it was a very old group and it had been around for a long period of time. And being in a position where I don't want to say management, but kind of like helping run and organize and make sure that it pulls off. Like, look, if anybody's listening to this and you're new, and if you're going to some of these meetings where there's these groups have, 10, 12 meetings a week, and they're at different venues and stuff. Look, that there's bank accounts, there's there's people on the committee, there's people talking about insurance, there's people talking about the topics, there's people talking about the culture of it. It takes a large amount of people to pull that off. But what I found is that I might be stuck in an area of my life, but the last thing I wanted to do, in a way, the home group was great for me because it gave me the structure, but at the same time, it kept me stuck in certain ways because I was embarrassed to talk about it. Like, I didn't want to talk about like, hey, you know what? Like, where people maybe get stuck is money, or they get, so it's like, wow, I'm sober, but like, hey, my money's going really up and down, or my personal relationships aren't great. Right. But I don't really have the skills to be able to handle certain things that are happening in my family or in my life. And, to have the discussion I found through the Unstuck room and having these conversations, live, either with Old School or through Unstuck on Clubhouse, is that not only was the only one that was not feeling, I was feeling this, other people were feeling it.
Of course.
But the really great thing about this is that I found a secret to getting unstuck. And
which is,
well, I think it's the identification of actually what's actually true and what's not true. Right. So the thing is that through 12-step and through therapy and everything, our heads get very, very full. Right. We have coaches, we've got all this other kind of stuff. And one of the things I like about coaching and why, coaching works so well to get unstuck in recovery is because a good coach is going to narrow right down in really quickly. I
Yes.
know, like when I've coached people that in 12 steps, especially business people, which is my thing. I do a lot of, I do guys, like
Yes, you do.
that's my thing for the most part.
Your
Guys come to me,
specialty. Yes.
not dancing for 8 weeks to try to find out what's wrong. Boom, narrowing it right down.
Correct.
Hey, look, you're afraid of people. Or, hey, look, you're not consistent
Right.
with what you do, right? Like just really getting narrow on actually labeling it on what's going on.
Well, and in traditional 12-step groups, sometimes you could be met with that's an outside issue. But I really believe that it is vital to my recovery to be able and to go and be transparent about what's happening in my life, to have that feedback. And most of our drinking is a result of our belief systems. It's not in a bubble, right? It's not in an incubator where I just have a problem with alcohol or I have a problem with, drugs. It is our whole life that needs to be discussed, and we need to be able to go to places and talk about it. And for me, one of the big secrets that I think for middle-aged women is that there might be some dissatisfaction. They spent years, either raising children if they're mothers or working at a certain career, and they get to that later in life, not early 20s or 30s. And they don't want to say that they're dissatisfied. They don't want to say that they need to have more. And so bringing up these kind of topics and opening the door to it allows for us to explore it safely, to not be on an island by ourselves, and allows us to hear somebody else say, me too. I'm not 100% satisfied with just being a mother.
Well, look, having worked with a lot of young guys, and I'm going to say, like I got sober in my 20s, so I understand what that's like, right? Like, so, and, now in my 50s, having long-term recovery gives you some perspective, but it doesn't necessarily help with granular issues. Sometimes it makes the granular issues, because a lot of times I think this is the disservice, is that a lot of times we go into these groups, right, our therapy, and they go, well, you're sober by the grace of God. And all of that's true. I believe all that's true. But it's just like, well, you shouldn't complain. You shouldn't really want more. Like, you're just lucky you're here. And, like a flower in the wind,
Right.
and I'm like, well,
Somebody's
you know what? I don't know
stepping
if that's necessarily true, right? Like, so the thing about just being able to really narrow in and identify what is going on, like what the hell's going on, like in the 20s, a lot of times with guys in the 20s, I find that they have a really hard problem with employment being self-contributing, right? Like just being able to sustain themselves.
Yes.
And especially in the culture now where a lot of people stay at home or have the option to stay at home, right? They're lost in the wind. And the thing is I understand that, like in the early 20s, because someone's just getting sober is so difficult. And now you're going to be thrown into the workforce, or you have to do something, right? Like to sustain yourself. And it's super stressful for a lot of these guys. So it's just like, just identifying what's wrong.
Specifically.
Like, hey man, you're not consistent. Like, so here's some tools about how to get consistent. I think AA is maybe even good at getting you to the precipice to be able to be neutral, right? 12-step groups, ACO, any of those, like neutral, to be able to say like, oh, okay, I can identify it without having this emotional breakdown.
Correct.
Because if you're not neutral about it, you can't ever get to
the grief,
the solution.
And then the solution. Yes. And most of our lives are all about denial. We pick up something that will allow us to remain in denial. And then we have to put that down because it's no longer the solution. Alcohol was a solution for me. And then it bit back. And I recognized, oh my gosh, I can't keep doing this and live, not to be dramatic, but I wouldn't have lived much longer at the rate I was drinking. But then guess what? All of these other things show up, like relationships, because I drank over relationships, like fear, and being able to share that openly, outside issue maybe, is, I think, key to being able to stay in recovery. And so I love that you continue to bring this type of content either here to the Recovered Life or on Clubhouse or all the other places that we're at, because I think that it is the key to keeping the sobriety that you have, but it's also important not just to stop at being sober. And I didn't get sober to be miserable.
Yeah, well, this is the whole thing. It's like, and this is why I think coaching, and I know with codependency and stuff, why your coaching is so valuable, Kristina, and coaching in general is valuable, is if you can find somebody that you can trust, that you
Yes.
can lean in enough and maybe take the advice. Because that's the other thing. It's like a lot of people in recovery are very touchy. They don't want to rock the boat
True.
with what they're thinking, right? They don't really want to know the truth, right? Like, so, and if you're willing to be able to kind of get out, if you're able to use the neutrality that 12 steps gave you in order to start to kind of apply this, why coaching's so good, or therapy, is it's a time compression play.
It
You
is.
don't, if you're inconsistent and you don't show up, instead of going 5 years in a career and getting fired every 6 months,
Right.
or not being able to, or bouncing because you, quote, have a problem with somebody that you work with, and it's the same problem that
Yes.
you've had the last 8 jobs, right?
And maybe you.
Yeah, maybe
you.
it's you, right? Like, so it's like, or maybe you're attracting people that are like this. So it's like this whole time compression play. I'm down. It works for business. It works for everything else.
Yes.
Why don't we use that in recovery?
I think that's such a good insight to say, because when I start to work with people, we have steps in so many areas of our life, right? We just did, the first segment on exercise. We have a pretty good idea at some point in your sobriety that you take these first steps, and these are the actions that you take. But when it comes to, exploring some of these bigger areas, we can make them a mountain. We can make them huge in our head. We've been running from this forever. And when you find somebody, you say, what, enough is enough. I'm going to invest in me. And you get that pointed, targeted system, that action plan. It can shave years off of something that you might have to do. You were saying, blowing in the wind. Well, This is a way to stop being blown around. This is a way to say enough's enough. I'm going to put down roots, and I'm going to figure out what I've been running from. And coaching is a great way to do it. Peer support groups help, but it's not nearly as targeted. And everybody should take that time to really, really invest in themselves, because that's what you're doing. You're investing in yourself, and you are not only running away from pain, but you're running to pleasure. And the way that you can do that is by working on the here and now. If you need things to grieve, you work a little bit of that, but the here and now, you have your plan. I was talking about, I always put my tennis shoes on, even if I'm only going to go 5 minutes, because that's the action step.
Well, that's it. And,
and you can
the
do
thing
that.
is that I think that where people get stuck the most in regard, by doing this room, it's been interesting because it's a group, there might be 20 to 30 people that are there. You got, more actually, right? You maybe have 50, 60, 100 that are coming in throughout the time, but there's a group of people on stage talking about areas that they were stuck. And, last week we did this whole thing about self-esteem. And, one of the things is the labeling of self-esteem is that people have self-esteem hits. And, one of the things that we identified is that the reason that people get stuck is a couple different reasons. One, they think they're stuck, but they're not stuck at all. They're just unable to see everything else that's happening in their life, and things are really moving. Things are really going. And, and I notice that with my own life too, is that I'll have the feeling of stuck, but in reality, when I put pen to paper, or when I talk to somebody like you, and you're like, hey, what about this? What about hey, you're doing the work. Things are happening. You just all of a sudden woke up one day and had an expectation that you feel is not being met. And now you've decided that you're stuck, but that's not true at all.
Yes. And there's something to be said about maturing in your spiritual life as well. And being around other people that are also willing to be transparent, also willing to share, also willing to walk through some of the hard stuff, or talk about that taboo, area that we don't want to talk about. It will allow, for me, this is the way it's always worked. Somebody will share something, and I will be in my head thinking, well, that was useless. I mean, I'll be honest, like, that's not going to help me. And sure enough, within 6 months, something's going to show up in my life, but I have the action plan. I have the blueprint on, she felt this way 6 months ago. Look at her now. And you're right. We don't know how fast we're moving. We are so hooked on dopamine, that we're dopamine junkies. That's what, you learn. And we're so hooked on dopamine that we don't spend any time cultivating the other 3 chemicals that help us enjoy life. And when you're sitting in something, you think you're sitting in it, but you're probably doing what you need to do, or you're going to know how to do what you need to do so that you aren't just relying on dopamine. Complacency is because we want that hit, right? We want that instant gratification. But when you have gotten to a point in your sobriety and your recovery where you know behaving like this is going to hurt me, behaving like this, you're really stuck emotionally. You need somebody to remind you,
Oh,
no,
absolutely.
you've
And you know
gone
what?
this far.
A lot of the times, I'm going to tell you really the honest truth about it is that people that are in recovery get addicted to drama. And
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes what happens is as they work the steps and go through and they start repairing their lives, right? When we start repairing our lives, there's no more drama. The drama
Mm-hmm.
reduces and then boredom sets in. A lot of people in recovery do not know how to live without the drama. So
Exactly.
so with that, they feel like, well, things aren't working
Right.
because there's no drama, right? And that's
Right.
not true at all. Things are actually working really well.
You've,
You're moving further away from that, but you're not experiencing that drama. And
right.
I think that I think that that's such a huge lesson. I mean, this has been a great segment. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're
This has
welcome.
been really fun.
Make sure to tell them again how to find the room on Thursdays, because I
Yeah,
think
I'm
it'd
going to
be
actually
amazing.
tell everybody. Yeah, I'll tell you Thursdays. All you have to do is go to Clubhouse. And guys, I want to just set this up. It's not just my room. I've got 2 rooms. Christina has 2 rooms
Yes.
on Clubhouse. We're on Clubhouse. I would say 4 days a week now.
4
We're on
days a
there
week.
4
Mm-hmm.
to 5 minimum hours a
Right.
week. We're on Clubhouse, as well as going live with you here 3 days a week. Plus, we're going to add an Instagram show. Everybody's been asking for an Instagram live, so we're going to stay tuned for that. We're going to add
That's
that.
cool.
So all you have to do is go to Clubhouse and put in The Recovered Life, and you're going to see our room come up. All you have to do is just hit that green Monopoly button, and then you're going to get notified every time that we have a room on Clubhouse.
A live room. Yeah.
Mine is on Thursday at 9 a.m. We
Mm-hmm.
also record them too, right? So
That's right.
people could listen to them later. Tell them a little bit about, I've got the Monday room where we talk about This Week in Recovered Life, where we set up our recovery plan.
Correct.
That's a great room. Monday at 9. And then tell them about what's going on
Sure.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, we have Rewire Your Brain. So it's all about recovery through a neuro lens. And we have a lot of guest speakers. Right now, we're walking through Brene Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart, and doing it as kind of a group book club. People come, they share. I have experts that come in and share from their standpoint, things like imposter syndrome, boundaries, which is the Wednesday room. But there'll be people who come in on Tuesday. We talk about mindset. We talk about the repair. We learn things like you're chasing dopamine. This is what you need to do to increase serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. And Wednesday, we go through the codependent lens, which I think is incredibly powerful. The name of the room is Setting Healthy Boundaries, because that is why I drank, because I didn't know how to set healthy boundaries. And it's so important for everybody, even if you do not consider yourself a codependent. Generally, I've said it before, I've met codependents who aren't alcoholics, but I've never met an alcoholic who doesn't have codependency tendencies.
Absolutely.
Ever.
And you know what? I will tell people because Christina will tell you, that is one of the top recovery rooms.
It's a great room.
In Clubhouse is your Wednesday room,
Mm-hmm.
the Setting Healthy Boundaries, because I've learned more through that room. It's so great. And the Tuesday one yesterday was crazy.
It was really good.
We'll go over this on TGIF Sober on Friday, the next episode that we do live. We'll go over TGIF Friday. We'll actually TGIF Sober. We'll talk about what actually happened in that Tuesday room. But you know what? It reminded me of actually early recovery, the energy of that room.
Yes.
And the breakthroughs that were happening one after another. And, and it blows my mind because I see a lot of stuff in recovery out there. This is 100% free, totally free.
Yes.
And people are having major, major breakthroughs.
It is. There's a lot of protein, right? We like that one show together. There's a lot of protein on Tuesday, and Wednesday is so beautiful. The human experience, knowing we're not alone, identifying things that we're doing in our life that are really, really slowing our margins down or shrinking our margins down. It is really, really, I think the reason why it's so popular is because people need this. I know
So
I needed this.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We need it. And you know what? If you're listening to this on a podcast, you're in a town that maybe doesn't have access live to all of these discussions, all you have to do is go to recoveredlife.us and you can join right there. It will say right in the middle there, there's a ton of resources. Click, hey, I want to join the members community totally for free. And you're going to just literally jump right into the discussion.
That's right.
And I'd like to thank everybody for that has joined. We've had a huge amount of membership of people that have come in over the last week here that have joined because they've listened to the show either live or on a replay. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Episode 80 in the can.
There you
Kristina
go.
Dennis, March 2nd.
I hope you have a beautiful Wednesday. And everybody who's listening, enjoy your day. Take care of yourself.
Yes, guys. Everybody have a great day. We're going to be back Friday,
Yep.
Friday the 4th
TGI
at 8 a.m. TGIF
Sober.
Sober. We'll see you guys there. Episode
Bye.
80 in the can.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.